Hello everyone and welcome to the next video in the Snap course. So today we'll be working on power-ups and scoring. So first, before we actually do our power-ups, we're going to have to learn about clones. So let's get started, and this is going to be a pretty long lecture, so we'll try to go through it quickly so that we have enough time to actually implement the code. Okay, so we're going to be making up some power-ups. So for example, we're going to have some ways to speed up, slow down, and basically how these translate is either we're going to make the sprite move faster or slower. So the score is based on time. So this really matters. So you want the power-ups to help people get higher scores. Okay, so let's talk about clones because we're going to need them when we're doing our power-ups. So a clone is essentially a replica of a sprite. So a clone copies all the data from a sprite. So this includes costumes, methods, and variables. So to make a clone, we essentially just have to right-click and make clone. This is one way. This would actually be creating a new sprite for that clone. And it would be a clone of the first sprite, so it has everything the same. So we're not going to be doing that for this project, but we'll see how we're going to be doing that in a moment. So clones are useful when you want to essentially make a copy of an existing sprite. So a clone will have the same features as the original, but you can also change those features and make them different. So you're essentially taking something and you're implementing it to do the same thing or do something more or do something more specific or something like that. Okay, so for example, maybe you have something like an animal, and all of these, like cats, bears, and crabs, are just types of animals. So here you could make clones of the animal and have them be cats, bears, and crabs. So the animal would be something big, and you can make clones of it that are more specific for the cat, bear, and crab. So this doesn't make complete sense, but it should clarify in a bit. So let's say we want to create a cat clone. So first let's make an animal sprite. And then after we make an animal sprite, we can clone it and make it a cat, which is more specific. It is an animal, but it is more specific than an animal. We can also make some edits to the clone and make it a little bit different, and we can add other kind of things. This can include also changing the name. So let's try this. If you were going to try this in code, it would be something like creating an animal sprite, create a variable called myName, clone the animal sprite, then rename the clone to maybe cat, and then change cat's myName to a new name. So by doing this, my name for the cat is different than my name for the animal. So here we can see this being animated. So they added some code for the animal, which is essentially some basic stuff, and they added a variable called myName. And then they added a block, getName. So if you remember how functions worked, we talked about this last time, we can just make it a reporter that reports myName. And so if we do that, then we have this new block, getName. Now if we duplicate this and make this a cat, this is a clone of the original, we can actually change myName. And then it'll be very different. So maybe set myName to something else. And then if we say get myName, then it'll say cat. It won't say an animal or anything else. So if we look at this, we basically had some stuff. We had these blocks, this method, and a variable. And they were copied over from animal to cat. Then the thing is, when we changed myName and cat, it became different for the cat, but it did not change for animal. Animal still had a value of 0. So we can look at this again, and if we look at my name, the cat is cat, while the animal is 0. So let's talk about something called inheritance. So let's think about this in a more human context first. Inheritance is basically the idea of inheriting properties from a parent. So let's say you have this person named Bob Smith, a short kid who inherits his big green eyes from Joe Smith, which is his father. Since they both have green eyes, we could have green eyes being a property of the parent and then inherit that into the child. So this is the idea of inheritance. We have properties that are inherited by a child from a parent. So we know that some of Bob's properties are similar to the properties of his father. So we can essentially utilize this by making that him inherit his features from his father. But at the same time, Bob isn't a copy of Joe, so he also has some differences. So to understand this in Snap, we already saw, actually. We were able to create an animal, and then we were able to create a cat, and the cat inherited all the variables and methods from its parent. What this means is that everything was essentially copied from that parent to the child. So here you can see how the parent, if we go to the parent, adding blocks makes it actually add to both the parent and the child. Whereas once you added a block to the child, it changed permanently. It no longer was attached to his parents. So you can see here it added to both the parent and the child. But now once we changed the child and made it different, it got distinguished from its parent. Okay, so that was all great, but we don't want to have to create a bunch of clones if we need some clones. What if we just want to generate clones on the fly? So there are actually blocks to create clones right on the fly in the middle of our program. So we can use this block, create a clone of myself, to create a new clone. We also have this other block, which is a new clone of myself, which is also a new clone, but it's as a reporter. Also, we have this block, which is when I start as a clone. And this is essentially how you can make your clones do something as soon as they are created. So let's say you create a clone. Immediately after it is created, what do you want your clone to do? Finally, there's the delete this clone, which is used to get rid of clones. Okay, so today's goal is to make first of all, we want to make a sprite called Power, and we want to make 2 costumes, which is essentially speed and slow. Those are our 2 power-ups. And then we're going to complete those power-ups by essentially adding stuff to make the blocks go slower, faster, and also to make it clone itself and fall through the level. So let's get practice. So to start, make all the sprites and costumes. This is fairly simple. We've been doing this for the entire course. Then make a forever loop, and for the power sprite, and every 10 to 15 seconds, you can choose any time you want, create a clone of the power sprite that goes to a random x position between negative 240 and 240, and at y equals 145. These numbers were chosen specifically, and you'll see why. Then have them fall down. So what we mean by falling is to continuously forever go downwards. So change y by maybe -3, -4, -5, something like that. Also create a new variable for x velocity. So x velocity is essentially going to be how fast the sprite is moving in the x direction. So you're going to want to create this for the main character sprite, and we can change this variable in order to make it move faster or slower. Also, a hint is you can use pick random 1 to 10 to do random decisions. So you can also use the timer to measure time. Reset the timer and then you can use it like a stopwatch. Okay, so you can modify the player forever loop so that rather than changing x by 5, it changes by x velocity. And so remember, x velocity is the variable you created. Then, for power, if a clone touches the player, delete the clone and set the x velocity to 3 or 7 for slow or speed as the power up. If the portal is touched on the last level, say the time it took and then end. So that's going to be your score. So the timer is essentially going to be timing everything. And when you finish the last portal, say the time it took and then you're done with everything. So that's it for today. So make sure you create your portals and finish everything with the platformer project. So finish it up, make it as good as you want it to be, and that's all. So we'll see you in the next lesson.